Welcome, everyone, to the next edition of Roaming with Restless Women, real talk with dynamic, wise women leaders. My guest today, full disclosure, is my sister, Michele Stewart. I'm excited to introduce her to all of you because she is an amazing entrepreneur. She's a philanthropist, and most of all, very family oriented. Michele and I both put ourselves through college, knowing that early on, if we wanted to reach our goals, we'd have to figure it out ourselves. Don't get me wrong, we had plenty of support and encouragement, but we didn't have a whole lot of financial resources. Michele got her degree in special education, starting her teaching career in a school dedicated to special ed kids. And then, seeing a need, she started a Mother's Morning Out for children from ages 0 to 5. That included typically developing in children also with intellectual and physical challenges. In short, she was inclusive before inclusive was cool. So welcome, Michele.
Hello.
I've got a couple of interesting questions for you this morning. The first one
Okay.
is, I would love for you to tell us a little bit about how you got the idea to start special care for special kids.
Okay. I started my career as a teacher in a couple of schools and ended up in a school that I worked hard to get to, which was a totally, at that time, segregated school for individuals with intellectual and physical challenges. And I loved my job, but we began having children, and I just wanted to be with them also. And I decided that I would try and birth a dream that I had since my career began. And that was to have my own program someday, because I knew there was a huge need in our community for children with these challenges to be able to be with their peers and to have some inclusivity. That inclusion was not cool, as you said earlier, and parents did not trust that their children would be okay with children that had challenges. So it was a huge milestone to overcome. But I thought, if I could just get these parents to trust me with their little sweet children, with my kid or kids and my friends' kids, then I knew that it would work. When I had my second child and did not like the daycares that we explored, I decided, okay, I'm going to stay out of work for a while. I may go back to teaching, but if not, I'm going to give it a shot to try and develop this preschool. My husband was 100% supportive and said, let's do this. You can try it. With absolutely no funding, we decided to start looking for a place to begin this preschool. There were no places that were cheap and affordable that we could squeeze into our budget. So we began praying about what to do. And our pastor literally came to us and said, hey, we've got some space at our church during the week that we don't use. So why don't you use that space? In the beginning, I was like, I don't know. I don't want people to think I'm taking advantage or whatever. So long story short, we did it anyway. And one child at a time, including my second child and a friend's child, we decided that we would say yes. And we had one room that we were given to use during the week. We decorated it like a schoolroom. We had preschool fun things. We had a schedule, and we had my son, my friend's son, and one special needs child. That was it back in 1994, 95. And we decided we would just continue to see if it would grow. Over time, which took a long time, we started to get new students. And the dream was born. And then I worked really hard to try and get people to actually trust us and bring their children to us. Hang on. And anyway, a little at a time, it began to grow. I then started thinking the state has to have a part of this. State, county, there's got to be a way that we can include children and they get the word out for us as well. And so the other part of the story is that it grew in a different way. And so that's where it all began.
Excellent. Excellent. I remember helping you write a couple of grants back then.
Yes.
Actually, yeah. What's the most important aspect about your career and your journey? What's the thing that holds it all together, that red thread?
Probably just faith in what we were doing, because without that, we would have buckled. There was no funding. It was 5 to 10 years of, wow, we can't pay our 2 staff that we had, or as it grew at 5 to 8 to 10 staff, and we had to dip into personal money to help do that. So being an entrepreneur is not always glorious. It does take a lot of hard work. Everything relies on the person that began the programming. But I think just faith that this was something that I could really grow if I just stuck to it. In the meantime, I had the beautiful journey of being home with my children half days and getting their homework done and going to the soccer practices and all the fun things that we got to do together.
Yeah.
So it paid off in a lot of ways other than just the program growing quickly. It gave me time to learn how to run the business successfully, for people to trust me and my staff, and to find more children that needed help. So even though it was rough, it was still, that red thread was the faith that we had to continue and to know that it would be something bigger than us. And our goal, and I said it from day one, was if we can help one child be included, to have a great preschool experience, to then go on to school and love where they came from and grow academically, spiritually, cognitively, and just socially, then we accomplished our goal, even if it was just one.
Mhm.
So we did that and some more. So it was, that was what held it together all those years.
I know it was a morning out program, so it was a half a day.
It was really, we
Um,
called it a preschool because we did teaching.
of
So
course, yeah.
yes.
But I was also thinking that for the parents, it
Mm-hmm.
had to be just such a blessing to be able to go to the store and do a quick grocery
Mm-hmm.
shop, or just have a break sometime on their own.
Mm-hmm. It was, a lot of the parents also became friends.
Yeah.
They found other people that were struggling in the same ways with their children who had challenges. They got
Mhm.
advice from each other. We would educate them. They would come and say, hey, what can we do? We would share things that we were doing in the classroom for them to use at home. So it was a lot of therapy happening, which in the end, our business grew after a few years into a whole nother facet, which included therapy for children. So then I had more and more staff, because then we had therapy staff, not only the teaching staff. So, one of our big goals became education of parents and their families, and everyone that was helping that child outside of our walls. And then as we did therapy in homes, we began to build our network of people and try and keep our reputation reputable when
Yeah.
we help these kids daily. It was such a blessing to be able to go into homes and to see the real struggle that they had day to day, and to help them a little bit. And the state allowed that through contracting, and then just the individual people who came in and paid for their own services. 26 years of really fun stuff.
Mhm. Absolutely. I know it was hard when you eventually retired.
Yes, very
Uh,
difficult.
yeah. What would you say is the number one thing that about being an entrepreneur that's challenging?
Learning as you go, because
Yeah.
unless you came from a career that was already set and you knew how to do every facet of running a business, you don't know. And I was so lucky that my previous jobs, even as a teenager, I worked in retail with people. That was important. I knew how to talk with them. Then I worked in personnel with human resources. So I got an idea of how to do payroll, for example, and paperwork that went along with that. So that was that was very helpful. And then in a company where I was working with executives and assistant to the president, and how to really be on your toes about things. All of my experience in the past helped me, but I still didn't know all the things. I still had so many things to learn. And since my husband was doing business, we could bounce off each other. But I think the people that I surrounded myself with helped me with different perspectives. I could call some staff in and say, okay, I'm going to throw this out. I need you to tell me what you think. And they would, and they'd be very honest. And then I would say, either, okay, I hear you, but we're going to do it anyway. Or I hear you, and now you've helped me see we can go a different path. All of those things kept me going as an entrepreneur. I think that sometimes you're born with that gene, because you have that desire, no matter what happens, to continue. And that
Mhm.
doesn't come with just jumping off the boat. I think that you really have to want to do it because it's the hardest job you'll ever do, because you're
Yeah.
fighting for yourself first to make it
Mhm.
happen. Then, of course, you have to be able to say, I can bow out. If I don't make this happen, it's okay. I can deal with it, move on. You got to know that up front.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
just a desire.
You and I have joked that your entire family is nothing but entrepreneurs,
They
which
do
is
have
really
that gene.
cool. Yes, they do. They very definitely do. I never had that gene until I was forced into having that gene. And I know when I was thinking about starting my business, I came to you and Frank, your
Mhm.
husband, quite a bit just for the basics because I didn't have business background. But I really appreciate your help with that. Um, what is the biggest transitional point that you've had in your career, and what did you learn from that?
I think for me, it has to be when I decided finally that I was going to close the doors and retire. There were a lot of people that said, "Why don't you just let someone else run it? Why don't this is an icon in the community? We need this." And I thought I could do that, but the value I had in it is never going to be the value that someone else got. It's never going to be the blessing and the pleasure that I got from it. So I just could not come to terms with doing that with someone else at the helm. So I think for me, it was letting go of something I created with a lot of people that helped me maintain and do these beautiful things with children. Definitely did not do it alone. And so giving that up it was a part of me for 26 years. And to walk away, even though we gave ourselves a year to do that, was super hard. It had just become me. That was just where I thrived, and that was my outlet and my sanity and my joy. And it gave me such pleasure to work with these families. So for me, that was very difficult, but it came at a time when you and I both know was needed because of our mom and the things that we were going to have to do for her in her future and the transition she was going through with losing a loved one and then her own challenges. So for me, it was I was prepared for that kind of care in a certain way, but not really, that
Yeah.
we were going to have to give to her. And for me, that transition was very difficult because it's one day I dropped all of that and picked up on a different kind of caregiving, and not a job, but a situation and a need. And it was totally different and very hard to do. So that was the one for me, the transitional time. But learning from it, I think I learned that's necessary, that we do have to transition into different phases of our lives, no matter what that means, whether it's job or people or situations that occur. It's necessary to do that. I think having that year helped me to do it a lot smoother than it would have been, but it was
Yeah.
very hard. That was very hard. But looking back, I see that I learned how to continue, I guess is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Finding your purpose next is really hard because I had a huge purpose. I felt like we were doing great things,
Oh
not every
yeah.
day, but most days. And I felt like now I wouldn't be as purposeful. So I think the transition for a lot of women, when they've had all of this wonderful joy in their job or ministry or whatever it is, dropping that when they know they have to and when it's the right timing and moving on it's difficult because now I'm
Yeah.
thinking you're floundering thinking, okay, what do I do now? What do I do now? And
Yeah.
who am I helping? That's
Well, and that's always, I know that's always been in your nature, is the nurturing. And so what what do you think is next? Or are you in your next?
I think I'm in between then and now still, even after it's been a few years, and I still some days think, what could I do? Because that entrepreneurial gene is just kicking my rear. So, and I'm always thinking I could do that. And then I'm like, I don't want to do that. I'd be in charge of all of that. And then I'd have to make it work every day. No,
Right.
I have
Yeah.
people helping me make it work. So I back off and I'm trying to do things that I really enjoy, but also being the caregiver that I need to be for all the people in my little squad. And then enjoying family, enjoying grandchildren that are coming along, and enjoying my kids and helping them. I love to help them do different things or whatever. So I don't know if I have a big what's next. I think I'm sailing along thinking that retirement is okay. But then I also think I got a lot of years that I need to keep my mind sharp. What can I do? So
Oh, yeah.
I think I'm still trying to figure it out. And I think for everybody, it probably takes a little bit longer time frame than others. I don't really know if there's a answer to how long, you know.
Yeah. That's probably the number one thing that I help my clients with is
Mhm.
they may be going through a big transition, whether it's a job they've gotten laid off and they're older and they're facing
Mhm.
ageism, or they just want to continue to be
Right.
purposeful, as you said. And
Yes.
a lot of my clients are in the same boat, and it does take time. It takes time, it takes a
Yeah.
lot of thought, and
Mhm.
sometimes it takes someone to think with you along that journey and to bounce stuff
Absolutely.
off, like you and
I
I
think
basically
that
do.
I think that for me, the purposefulness is important. And I think that when you transition from job or ministry or whatever to then being with family and helping with family and just trying to be there and be available, it's a totally different purpose because they know you're there and it's already in your DNA to do that. So it's not really a fulfillment of purpose because they've always seen you doing those things.
Yeah.
You're, oh, mom's over here. She'll help do this. But then when you're doing a job setting, it's they come to you because you're in charge or you're part of in charge or you're part of a team. Over here, I've always been part of that team and I'll always help and I always did. It's totally different because they don't call you as often and take advantage because you're not in charge of the whole team. It's so
Right.
funny. They
It's
all have
well,
their own teams.
exactly. And it's hard to see your kids. It takes a while to see your kids as fully functioning adults too.
Absolutely.
And deciding when am I going to help and when am I going
Mhm.
to put some barriers up
Absolutely.
to make sure that they're flying their independent journey too.
Right.
It's
Right.
difficult. You and I are in the
Different.
same boat that way.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I'll ask you to close your eyes
Okay.
and I want you to describe the picture that appears in front of you when I say wise woman.
Okay. Old,
Yeah.
been around the block, had a lot of experiences, and can give great advice to younger women.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. It's interesting. A lot of people will say someone's name that
Mhm.
was really influential. And then some people will do what you did and describe this iconic figure.
Uh-huh.
And when I started this process and when I was thinking about who would I want to work with as a coach and who would I want to leave some legacy with, that picture appeared in my mind. It's
Mhm.
an old Cherokee Indian woman, reminiscent of our grandmother,
Yeah.
and just thinking about that picture appears in every culture in the world.
Mhm.
There's
Mhm.
always that wise woman that holds things together, you
Right.
know. Okay, last two questions, and these are really easy. Where do you like to roam?
In the woods.
That's nice that
Outside,
you have the woods.
outside and in the woods. I love to be outside.
That's great. Perfect. And then the second thing, what makes you restless?
Not having something to do. It doesn't have to be totally purposeful, like a big thing, but I love big projects that I have to plan. I'm a helper. Somebody tells me, "Hey, I need your help and do this. What can we do?" I'm on it. I think that, yeah, for me, that's that's the deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I've seen that play out. Like I said, full disclosure, you're my sister, so we've lived our whole
Yep.
lives together, and I've
Yep.
seen those traits throughout
Mhm.
your life, and they're very important to me, and they complement sometimes what I don't have. So you've helped me out quite a bit too. All right, thank you so much. Are there
You're welcome.
any final wise words you want to say to our audience here?
I would say if you feel the need to start something, no matter your age, try it. What do you have to lose if it's something that you can do and still maintain the life that you would like to have during that time frame, financially or otherwise? Try it. Don't be afraid to try it. You don't know where it'll go. And if you fail at that particular thing, it's okay. Try something
Absolutely.
else or not. But if you think about it all the time, you need to try it.
Absolutely. Anything that's that hard in your head and your heart
Mhm.
that's just compelling you, give it a shot. You never
That's
know.
right. I agree.
Absolutely. Thanks, sis. I appreciate your
All
helping
right.
me out with the
Thank you.
podcast. I'll talk to
Thank
you
you.
soon.
Bye.
Bye.